Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to call to order the April 11th, 2016 meeting of the Dover City Council. Please rise and join us for the invocation by the Reverend Theodore Henderson, followed by the pledge to our nation's flag, led by Councilman Hare.
Could we have just a few moments silence for loss, our loss, but heaven's gain of a wonderful man, Reverend Richard Avant, who was a treasure to this community, as well as to all those of us who knew him. Just a few moments silence. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the life of your servant, Reverend Richard Milton Avant, who dedicated his life to you, to service, to justice for all people, as well as to the needs of all people, who was an example of ministry in action. He fed the poor. He did all that he could, dear God, to feed the hungry and to clothe those. What a wonderful servant and mentor he was, and he will be missed. Now, we pray for special prayers for the Calvary Church as they, you can't replace the man, but as they get used to God for him not being here in this life. And help us all, dear God, to realize that every day is worthy of our best efforts. Help us to measure our duties as Reverend Avant did, and our responsibilities by taking our ordinary tasks and translating them into permanent values. Let us feel in our hearts that the jobs we do are significant in your eyes altogether. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have before you this evening's agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Hutchison, seconded by Councilman Cole to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now have the consent agenda before us. Those items on the council agenda which are considered routine and non-controversial are marked with an asterisk and will be acted upon by a single roll call vote of the council. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of council so requests, in which event the matter shall be removed from the consent agenda and considered a separate item. What's the pleasure of council? Councilman Lewis.
Mr. Slavin, I would like two things pulled from this consent agenda. Number 7.2, review of hospitality and civic function policy. And also number 9, appointment of interim fire chief, interim fire marshal.
Okay, so item 7A2 and number 9. Number 9. Councilman Sudler.
Yes, Council President Slavin, I concur with my colleague, Councilman Brian Lewis. I too would like item 9 to be pulled off the consent agenda for discussion. Thank you.
Any other issues with the consent agenda? I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Neal and seconded by Councilman Anderson. Any further discussion on the matter? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Sudler?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hosfeld?
Yes.
Mr. Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Slavin?
Yes. Motion carries 9-0. I'm going to ask for consideration of items in a different order. And considering the fact that our item number 9 may in fact lead into a discussion about personnel matters which would require us to go into executive session. If it's amenable to the group, could we take that as just before adjournment?
With no objection.
Thank you. Item number 2 is a presentation of the American Public Power Association Certificate of Excellence in Reliability. I would invite Mayor Christensen, Harry Maloney, City of Dover Electric Director, to the podium for the presentation. And I would also invite Councilman Hutchison as the chair of the utility committee to come forward. Thank you for that suggestion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
My apologies, Councilman Hutchison.
Harry, it's with great pleasure that on behalf of myself and the members of council that we present to you this certificate of excellence and reliability to you and your staff on behalf of the APPA. And Utility Chairman Hutchison, do you want to say something?
Mr. Mayor, thank you so much in behalf of certainly the council and most importantly, the people that we all serve. I can't thank you enough, Harry, for the job that you do and your people for keeping the lights on each and every day. We thank you. We're proud of what you do.
And Dover's been electric since 1903. It's electric, Harry.
Thank you, Mayor.
You want to say anything?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council President, Council members. Tonight, I was presented an award for Certificate of Excellence in Reliability for calendar year 2015. This is not my sole doing. This is the sole responsibility, not sole responsibility, overall responsibility of the city. And I'd like to acknowledge those fellow city employees. They include the line crews, the operators, substation technicians, office staff, of a job well done in keeping the lights on. Plus the support of other city departments are most important. To name a few, such as accounting, central services, which is the warehouse and inventory, public works, city administration, and the city manager. And finally, I'd like to thank you for the mayor, the council, utility committee, and your continuing support of Dover's electric utility to provide excellent service to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Item number 3 is presentation, Vision 2040, Dover Kent County MPO Metropolitan Transportation Plan for 2017 through 2040. I invite Kate Layton of the Dover Kent MPO to the podium for the presentation.
Thank you very
Good
much.
evening.
Thank you. The other side? Oh, there we go. Had to make sure the clicker was on. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. And as Mr. Slavin said, I'm here to talk about the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. This is our long-range plan, and we're early in the stages of this. We're in the process of the draft, and one of the reasons why I'm giving this presentation tonight is to get public input, which is a valuable part of this process. And so once we get the public input, then we can finish the draft. And then what we'll do is we'll take this draft to our council, the MPO's council, in January 2017, and take it there for approval. I'm going to step back for a second. For anyone that doesn't know what an MPO is and what the Dover County MPO is, the MPO is an agency that aids in transportation planning and programs for Central Delaware. The MPO that I work for, the Dover County MPO, was formed in the early 1990s. It's a federally funded agency. It's not for profit. But there's MPOs all over the country, and they are here via an act of Congress. It was done in the 1970s. And this is one of our core projects, and it's our long-range plan, which is about what you'd think it would be. It's a plan that looks at how the Central Delaware will take shape transportation-wise over the next 20 or more years. Set some measurable goals, how we should spend money. We update this every 4 years, and you'd see a lot of the major projects are eligible for federal funding. The first one was done in 1996, so this is our 5th update to the original long-range plan. So the MTP, it identifies transportation needs and strategies. It guides transportation investment, and it shows that transportation-related projects will meet federal air quality standards. 3 primary goals are to move people safely and efficiently, of course, strengthen communities, and promote economic development. And so you think, well, how much can anything change in 4 years? Well, for one thing, we have a new federal transportation bill called the FAST Act. It was just enacted this past December. And what it's doing is it is clarifying a lot of the things that were in the previous transportation bill, which was called MAP 21. But it's also facilitating spending obligations through FY 2020, and is providing a 5% and an 8% increase in highway and transit spending, respectively, through the rest of this fiscal year, and then a 2% per year increase past this fiscal year. What it also, this long-range plan, this update, is focusing on performance-based planning. Again, that's a carryover from the last one and the last transportation bill, but again, there's more details that the FAST Act is clarifying for those performance-based goals. There's also greater emphasis on freight. And Delaware last year became one of the few states in the country to adopt an overall regional freight plan with its neighbors, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. This is along the Delmarva Peninsula. Kent County is projected to receive between $800 million and $900 million for transportation projects between now and 2040. This is based on historical trends. There's about 35 road projects and 12 walk and bike projects that are considered financially reasonable in this plan. So those include improvements to Kent Road, the Camden Bypass, the proposed US 13 widening, some of the remaining grade separated intersection projects along Route 1, and then the extension of Crawford Carroll Road. Some of the bike and pedestrian highlights include sidewalks near the new Dover High School, more sidewalks along Route 13 in Dover, and the Senator Bikeway. And that's along the Route 8 Division Street corridor and a little bit past. So as I said before, we are looking for input. From now through the summer, we're going to be at various public events. You can go on our website and take our survey. I'm going to be at the 55 Plus Expo tomorrow at Dover Downs, and so I'll be asking people if they want to take the survey there. If they don't want to take the survey, or if people don't want to take the survey, that's fine. They can still comment by calling us. They can leave comments on our social media pages or emailing us. They can come to our workshops. We're going to have a workshop this summer, or our public meetings. They can give us a call. There's our number there. They can write to us via regular U.S. postal mail, or they can drop by the office. We're in the Camden Town Hall building at 1783 Friends Way. So again, the timeline for this is that we're going to take this through most of the summer and into the fall. We'll incorporate the public comments that we've received and put that into the final draft and take that to the MPO Council in January 2017 for approval. Once it's approved, or if it's approved, then we'll take that to the Federal Highway Administration and the Federal Transit Administration for approval or for adoption. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Lee? Councilman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for coming out to council tonight. I have a question about the public input. Are you going to be holding any particular events, or
Yes.
are you?
June 8th, we'll have a public workshop at the Dover Library, which is right next door here. And like I said, we are, as we'll be at events. Like I said, tomorrow I'll be at the 55 Plus Expo at Dover Downs. I'll be at Dover Days on May 7th. I'll be at the Bug and Bud Festival down in Milford on the 23rd of April, and various other ones, Safe Summer Day, the Peach Festival, a lot of them. So, but as far as holding events, the public workshop is the one that we'll be having specifically for the MTP.
Thank you. Any other questions from you? Councilman Lewis.
Ma'am, do you possibly foresee in the future a proposed railway / light rail?
You're not the first person to ask me that, and you probably won't be the last. I've been asked this question pretty much at every presentation that I've given, and this is the third or fourth one I've given now. But the answer to that is probably not for a while. There was a study done a few years ago that looked into light rail or extending rail from Newark down through Kent County and into Maryland. And they're looking at 1 or 2 trips down and then 1 or 2 trips back up per day. And the overall cost, I think, was sort of perceived to be a little bit too much for right now.
Any other questions for Ms. Layton? Thank you very much. Agenda item number 4 is a proclamation for Arbor Day. I would ask Mayor Christensen and the Chair of the Parks and Recreation Committee, David Anderson, to come forward and be joined by the Field Supervisor for our Grounds Division, George Jamar, and request the City Clerk to please read the proclamation into the record.
Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton, a Nebraska pioneer, proposed that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees by individuals and civic organizations, resulting in the first celebration of Arbor Day on April 10, 1872, with an estimated 1 million trees being planted in Nebraska that day. And whereas in 1885, Arbor Day was named a legal holiday and has since become a national event promoted by the National Arbor Day Foundation, whose mission it is to inspire people to plant, nurture, and celebrate trees. And whereas the City of Dover was named a Tree City USA in 2015 for the 26th consecutive year by the National Arbor Day Foundation in recognition of the city's outstanding urban forestry program. And whereas the City of Dover Planning and Inspections Department's tree planting and preservation ordinance has caused the planting of thousands of trees in all subdivisions and commercial sites since 1992. And the city has continued to aggressively plant street trees between curbs and sidewalks in almost every available site in the city. And whereas the Delaware State Champion American Elm on the Green may be the only living witness to Delaware's ratification of the United States Constitution that took place at the Golden Fleece Tavern in 1787. Underscoring that planting and caring for trees is a special gift that one generation passes down to the next. Now, therefore, I, Robin R. Christensen, Mayor of the City of Dover, Delaware, do hereby proclaim April 29, 2016 as Arbor Day in the City of Dover, and urge all citizens to support efforts to care for trees along our streets, in our parks, and in our yards. As the City of Dover plants trees on public property, I urge all citizens to plant trees on their properties to enhance the environment and promote the well-being of present and future generations.
Thank you, Mr.
Mayor
President.
Christensen.
First off, I'd like to present this to you, George, on behalf of the mayor and council and city staff. I thank you and your folks for your efforts. And I'd like to reiterate something that the city clerk said. We urge everyone to plant trees, no bamboo. So, Dave, do you have anything you want to say to George about that?
Just thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
George, you want to say a few words?
Well, I just want to thank the city as a whole, the council, city manager, everyone for the support. It takes everybody, all the staff, the grounds staff involved, to take care of the city's trees. We have numerous trees to take care of. A lot of them are old and under some severe pressure, so just keeping them alive and getting new trees planted is very important, so I ask that everybody chip in and plant a tree. We've been very fortunate, and the state helps us quite a bit. We were able to plant a nice elm tree on the green again, where we had lost one previous, and then they are providing us with a saucer magnolia that we're going to plant in honor of Arbor Day. So just thank you very much.
Thank you, George. George, I know we're here to talk about trees, but if you could extend our thanks on behalf of everyone in the city to your crew for the work they did planting the flowers this year. This has been a spectacular last 3 or 4 days as each bed has started to bloom, and they just did a wonderful job.
Thank you
Please
very much.
extend our thanks to them.
Sir, thank you.
Item number 5, annexation of property located at 1102 South State Street, owned by Capital Cleaners and Launderers. Mrs. Townsend, would you please brief us on this item?
Yes, thank you. This is a 6,331 square foot parcel of land that actually includes a portion of a building. This is located on South State Street across from Carroll's Corner, and the building is dissected by the property line and has 2 different owners, so that the rear parcel has a separate owner. So this is the front portion of that building at 1102 South State Street. It is in our high priority annexation area and is identified as commercial in the land use plan. The current zoning in Kent County is general business, and they have requested limited central commercial. The property is currently served by city electric and water, and they wish to connect to city sewer, which is what has them requesting annexation. There was a public hearing before the Planning Commission on March 21st, 2016. There were no members of the public that spoke with regards to the annexation and rezoning application. Following that public hearing, the Planning Commission voted in favor of the annexation with the proposed C2A zoning. There were 5 votes in favor and no votes in opposition. We had 4 members absent that evening. I would answer any questions if you have them.
Questions for staff? There are no questions for staff. First, we will have a public hearing related to the rezoning of the property located at 1102 South State Street. I'll declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of the proposed rezoning? In favor of the proposed rezoning? Is there anyone who would like to speak against the proposed rezoning? Against the proposed rezoning? As no one has come forward, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Next, I'll entertain a motion for the adoption of the annexation resolution number 2016-01.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Hare and seconded by Councilman Neal. Is there a discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Sedler?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hosfeld?
Yes.
Mr. Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Slavin?
Yes, motion carries 9-0. Item 5C, final reading and adoption of rezoning ordinance 2016-08. We now have the final reading adoption of rezoning ordinance 2016-08. The first reading of the proposed ordinance was accomplished during the council meeting of February 8th, 2016. The ordinance is available at the entrance of the council chambers and on the city's website at www.cityofdover.com under the government tab. First, I will entertain a motion to consider the final reading by title only.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Neal and seconded by Councilman Hare to consider the ordinance by title only. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Proposed ordinance 2016-08, amending the zoning ordinance and zoning map of the City of Dover by changing the zoning designation of property located at 1102 South State Street. What is the pleasure of council?
Move to accept.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Hare and seconded by Councilman Cole to approve the ordinance. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Sedler?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Glassfeld?
Yes.
Mr. Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Slavin?
Yes, motion carries 9-0. Agenda item number 6 is a public hearing, final reading of staff substitute SS number 1 for proposed ordinance 2016-01 with staff amendment number 1, SA 1. The first reading of the proposed ordinance was accomplished during the council meeting of February 22nd, 2016. The ordinance is available at the entrance of council chambers and on the city's website. Since this is an amendment to the zoning code, a public hearing is required. First, I will entertain a motion to consider the final reading by title only.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Neal and seconded by Councilman Hare. I'm sorry, was that Councilman Hutchison? Councilman Hutchison. I'm sorry. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Staff substitute SS number 1 for proposed ordinance 2016-01 with staff amendment number 1, SA number 1, amending Appendix B, zoning, Article 3, district regulations, Section 1, one-family residence zones, R20, R15, R10, R8, and R7, subsection 1.1, uses permitted, subsection 1.15, accessory uses, limited to the following. Mrs. Townsend, would you please brief us on this item?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an ordinance that has been in discussion for a number of months in response to some complaints that we've gotten over properties that have chickens, residential properties that have chickens in the yards that have caused some challenges for neighbors. So what this would do is it would eliminate the language in the zoning ordinance that allows for residential properties to have up to 25 fowl. And it would create provisions for the keeping of chickens for individual domestic purposes and provide restrictions. One is that chickens would not be permitted on lots smaller than a quarter acre. No more than 5 chickens would be permitted on a residential lot. Chickens would have to be registered with the Delaware Department of Agriculture. That is a registration that simply allows the Department of Agriculture to notify owners of chickens in the event that there is some sort of an avian virus that they should be aware of. Chicken coops need to be located in rear yards and a minimum of 20 feet from the side and rear property lines. Odors from the chickens cannot be discernible from property lines. And at first reading, there was a discussion about whether or not roosters were prohibited elsewhere in the code. I did check the animal control section, and roosters were not prohibited anywhere else in the code. So staff added an amendment. You can see on line 39 that would prohibit the keeping of roosters. And then finally, it would require that all lots come into compliance with the requirements of this section by June 1st of this year. This went to the Planning Commission. There was a public hearing before the Planning Commission, and ultimately the Planning Commission voted 4 votes in favor of the proposed ordinance, 1 member of the commission abstaining, and the remaining 4 were absent. So with the Planning Commission, for them to approve an action, it is a majority of those present, provided they have a quorum. So it was a favorable recommendation with 4 votes. If you have
Questions for staff? Councilman Anderson.
Thank you. Now, Mrs. Townsend, you say that the Planning Commission doesn't need to have a majority of the commission, just a majority of quorum?
Yes, as it's been relayed to me by Mr. Pepper in the past, it's a majority of those present under Robert's rules, unless it's specified otherwise in bylaws, or in the case of city council, it's specified otherwise in code.
All right, thank you. So it's, so even though we only have a minority of the commission, it's seen as a favorable recommendation.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Hosfeld.
Can you help me understand why we want chickens in the city at all?
Well, the conversation started several months ago, and there was discussion about eliminating the allowance of people to keep chickens. There are actually quite a few people in the city that have chickens. They keep them for eggs, and there's this growing movement of, you know, having the food closer, the source of the food closer to the home. So there are more and more people who are getting chickens and keeping them in their yards, keeping them for eggs. So there were quite a few people who I think were concerned about it. One in particular is a member of the Planning Commission and reached out to some council people and provided the opportunity for people to see how his chickens are kept, and that's where we started talking about having guidelines for how chickens could be kept so that they are compatible with the surrounding area.
So a quarter acre, would that be probably the majority of the lots in the city of Dover?
There are a lot of lots that are under a quarter acre. In most of the subdivisions, they would be a quarter acre or more.
And who's going to end up with the enforcement part of this? Police department,
The
inspections?
code enforcement. So it's planning and inspections.
Any other questions for staff? I'll now declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak in favor of the proposed amendment? In favor of the proposed amendment? Is there anyone who would like to speak against the proposed amendment? Against the proposed amendment? I'll declare the public hearing closed. What is the pleasure of council with regard to staff amendment number 1?
Move to accept.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Herron, seconded by Councilman Anderson to approve staff amendment number 1. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Madam Clerk, why don't you call the roll?
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Sedler?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hustle?
No.
Mr. Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes, motion carries 8-1. I will now entertain a motion for adoption of proposed ordinance 2016-01 as amended by SS number 1 and SA number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Herron, seconded by Councilman Cole. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Anderson.
Mr. President, I have been skeptical in the past of efforts to ban the raising of chickens in the city because I believe that in the long run, it is disadvantageous to us from an environmental standpoint and for a cultural standpoint, particularly members of the Haitian community, many of whom I have the pleasure of representing, who have real concerns about what some see as an attack on their way of life. I am very skeptical of that. There are many people who raise chickens in particular in the city without disruption. There are very few who are irresponsible, and I think targeting them, the ones that are getting complaints who are being irresponsible, who are not cleaning up, is much more advantageous to the overall well-being of the city. Because everything, no matter what you do, comes down to that somebody's going to be irresponsible. That's why we have certain regulations. You don't disenfranchise everyone else. What I've looked at when it comes to organic farming, when we look at the fact that we are becoming a society that is, if something goes wrong with our electrical grid, we are becoming a society that will not survive. The Great Depression was something we survived for a simple reason. It's because people were able to grow their own food. They were able to have their own food. Instead of stealing it, people survived. They survived the worst time in America. If that happened again, I would fear what would happen. I know it's so easy to look and become comfortable, but the warning signs are there. And I think we will rue the day that we lower our food supplies. I had the pleasure myself of, when I was growing up, there was a time where our family had chickens. It did not cause a disruption to our neighbors. In fact, our neighbors liked it because they were able to get fresh eggs. It was not something that was disruptive to our family. It was not disruptive to our neighbors or our neighborhood. And we were not the only people to do so. I don't think that times have changed that much because it hasn't been that long. So I am concerned about the encroachment that is represented here.
Any other questions or comments on the motion? Councilman Neal.
Sorry, I can't resist this. A point of information. Are roosters allowed to visit but not stay over?
Roosters would be prohibited.
That's not racial, that's not sexual discrimination, is it? Never mind.
Any further comments for the good of the order?
I do.
Mr. Hausfeld.
The only thing I would say to that is, I grew up with chickens too, and I didn't consider it a pleasure. And what I see this is going to be an impossible thing to enforce. We're going to have that person that's going to come and complain because someone's got 5 chickens, whether they're 20 or 22 feet from the property line, and whether they can smell them but the homeowner can't smell them. There's no way you're ever going to prove this in court. So it's going to be a constant hassle. It's going to be a constant problem for our code enforcement people. I don't know. I don't know why we're even doing this.
Point of information, Mrs. Council, we currently allow chickens in the city.
Yes.
We should change
This
the
was,
motion.
this was reducing. Other, Councilman Sutherland.
Are we going to require that those individuals who have chicken coops to register with the city of Dover, so that would help with enforcement? Because I do understand we only have, at this present moment, 2 code enforcement officers for the whole city. Is that correct?
We've got, actually, we have 5 at this point.
5
We have
now?
one that started today.
Okay. So I know we were at a shortage.
We went down to 4 because we had one who left, but we've had 4.
Okay. So will we have a list? Is there a current list that is provided to the city of those residents that have chicken coops? Do we know where all the chicken coops are now at this present moment?
The ordinance as proposed would not require registration of chickens. We believe that would add an additional layer of work that would be on the property owners and the staff, and then we end up following up on people who haven't registered rather than just allowing, people have dogs in the city, people have cats, they're not registered with the city either.
My only concern is that I see this being a complaint-driven, enforced ordinance, and I think sometimes complaint-driven forced ordinance can leave way for someone just to retaliate on you or just to target you just because they can. So I think that we need to require for them to register if they're going to have a chicken coop, in my opinion. Thank you.
Councilman Hare.
I think they are required to register with DENREC.
Department of Agriculture.
Or, excuse me, Department of Agriculture. So we can request the list from Department of Agriculture to see who has registered. And I can almost guarantee you that everybody in the city that has chickens hasn't registered with the Department of Agriculture. So they could be in violation of state regulations. And to follow up on what Mr. Anderson said, I think when the Great Depression hits or the Ice Age hits, we can probably change this back and reverse it in 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now when we're all dire, desperate straits.
Other comments on the motion? And the motion that was made by Councilman Hare and seconded by Councilman Cole was to approve the proposed ordinance as amended by SS number 1 and SA number 1. There's no further comments. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
No.
Mr. Sedler?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hosfeld?
No.
Mr. Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Slavin?
Yes, motion carries 7-2. We now have item 7A2, a review of the hospitality and civic function policy, which was heard during the Council Committee of the Whole Legislative Finance and Administration Committee of March 29, 2016. I'll defer to Councilman Hare as the Chair of Legislative and Finance and Administration Committee to summarize the matter, and then I'll defer to Councilman Lewis.
I'll defer to Councilman Lewis.
Councilman Lewis.
Okay. Members of council, I cannot support this proposed ordinance as written. One, my feeling is if you're going to implement this ordinance, then why not across the board to include city staff, the city manager, mayor, and other city staff members who are entitled to attend these league events also. Two, I personally think you're hunting the wrong animal here as far as trying to decrease this budget. The Delaware League of Municipalities provides education to elected officials, lobbies for better government, keeps we, the local leaders, abreast of what our higher elected officials are doing. Myself, Mr. Neal, Mr. Cole, Mr. Anderson attend these league seminars to become more educated on how to serve our constituents. My concern is not with funding being used to attend these league educational seminars. It's more with tables being purchased at $200, $400 to attend awards dinners, etc. For example, the Economic Development Gala at Dover Downs. We have the prayer breakfast, just to name a few. They're more so my concerns. So I would like to recommend that this proposed ordinance be returned back to the drawing board for revisions.
In the form of a motion?
I can put it in the form of a motion. I would like to make a motion that this proposed ordinance be returned back to the Leg and Fin Committee for further revisions.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilman Lewis and seconded by Councilman Anderson to return the matter back to committee. The discussion of the motion? Just for purposes of context, I'll read the committee recommendation so that we know what the members of the public who are listening in know what we're voting on. The Legislative Finance and Administration Committee recommended that the hospitality and civic function policy be amended to state that if a member of City Council goes to an event, depending on the size of the event, they will come back and provide an update to Council regarding the benefits received from the event. If a member goes to the National League of Cities event, they would provide Council with a more extensive report of what they learned. And if a member signs up to go to an event and the city pays for it, but the member fails to attend, the member will have to reimburse the city. That was the context. The motion by Councilman Lewis, seconded by Councilman Anderson, is to return the matter back to committee. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No. No.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Sedler?
No.
Mr. Neal?
Abstain.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
No.
Mr. Hosfeld?
No.
Mr. Hare?
No.
Mr. Hutchins?
No.
Mr. Slavin?
No. Motion fails by a vote of 2 yes, 6 no, 1 abstention. Is there a motion to accept the report of Legislative Finance and Administration?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Hare and seconded by Councilman Hutchison. Is there any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed? No.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
No.
Mr. Sudler?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
No.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hosfeld?
Yes.
Mr. Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 7-2. We'll be taking agenda item number 9 out of order at the conclusion. Agenda item number 10, first reading of proposed ordinance 2016-09 with Council Committee of the Whole Safety Advisory and Transportation Committee Amendment Number 1, CCW/SA&T Number 1. The first reading is offered on proposed ordinance 2016-09 with the CCW/SA&T Amendment Number 1. Amendments to Appendix B zoning require a public hearing. It is recommended for referral to the Planning Commission on May 16, 2016, and that a public hearing be set for June 13, 2016 at 7:30 p.m., at which time the final reading and council action will take place. The ordinance is available at the entrance of council chambers and on the city's website at www.cityofdover.com under the Government tab, or by contacting the clerk's office at 736-7008, or by emailing city clerk's office at cityclerk@dover.de.us. I would request that Councilman Hosfeld, Chair of the Safety Advisory and Transportation Committee, brief us on the ordinance.
Thank you, President Slavin. The ordinance in front of you refers to speed reduction devices. As you can see from the definitions, we talk about speed bump, speed cushion, and speed hump. What we're doing with this ordinance is looking to allow speed cushions on private property. This matter came before us probably late or early last fall, when some business owners in certain commercial districts were concerned about the speed of vehicles and the thought of some accidents waiting to happen. So we started researching speed bumps, speed cushions, and speed humps. And as a result of that, I met with Chief Burnett of the Dover Police Department and Chief Carey of the Dover Fire Department. And those gentlemen can obviously speak for themselves, but I think I can say that they agreed with the ordinance and are in favor of allowing speed cushions. The significant thing about speed cushions, they allow for fire apparatus, large apparatus, to move through these private property roadways unimpeded, where normal vehicles, those that usually speed and are usually causing the problems, would have to slow down to access or proceed over these speed cushions. So the ordinance is in front of you again. Obviously, speed reduction devices are still prohibited, but speed cushions would be allowed on private property, and they would be so at the cost of the property owner and would be installed in accordance with the Delaware Traffic Calming Device Design Manual. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those, or Ms. Townsend possibly could help me out if needed.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the council? If none, I'll recommend a motion for the referral of the item as recommended.
So moved. Second.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Sudler and seconded by Councilman Anderson to refer the matter as recommended. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. I will now defer to the city clerk for the introduction of the proposed ordinance in accordance with section 1-9 of the Dover Code. Madam Clerk.
Proposed ordinance number 2016-09 with Council Committee of the Whole Safety Advisory and Transportation Committee Amendment Number 1, amending Chapter 98, Streets, Sidewalks, Storm Sewers, and Other Public Places, Article 1 in general, Section 98-10, Speed Reduction Devices, Appendix A, Subdivisions, Article 6, Subdivision, General Requirements and Design Standards, Section A, Streets, Paragraph 1, and Appendix B, Zoning, Article 10, Planning Commission, Section 2, Site Development Plan Approval, 2.54, Proposed Development. This constitutes the first reading. The final reading is scheduled to take place on June 13, 2016.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Agenda item number 11, City Manager's announcements.
Thank you, Council President Slavin. Two quick announcements. First, as many people know, the water system flushing is underway Staff has entered week number 2 of a 3-week plan to flush the entire water system. The schedule, or the general schedule, is posted on the website. Item number 2 out of the Public Works Department is from April 11th through April 22nd is Spring Cleanup Week. The staff is diligently working to remove all of the spring cleanup debris and garbage, as well as bulk items from the curbside to encourage all property owners to take advantage of Spring Cleanup Week. Both of these activities are posted on the homepage of the city website, and staff is available to answer any questions if they come up. So please contact us.
Thank you, Mr. Koenig. Agenda item number 12, city council member announcements. Councilman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am pleased to announce that Councilman Sudler and I are continuing our successful tradition of quarterly town halls. Our spring town hall will be Tuesday, April 19th at 6:30 p.m. The location will be Union Missionary Baptist Church, which is at 883 Lincoln Street in Dover. We want to thank Pastor Moore for the facility and opening it up to the public. And we want to invite anyone, particularly people in the 4th District, whether or not they are in Lincoln Park or Simon Circle, to the event, and any other interested citizens as well. But particularly members of the 4th District, and we'd, of course, have an open invitation to members of council, particularly our council president, if you would like to drop by.
Again, that's Tuesday, April 19th, 6:30. Is that what you said? 6:30?
That is correct.
At 883 Lincoln Street.
That is correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Other announcements from members of council? Councilman Sudler.
Yes. This announcement is for Lincoln Park and surrounding areas. The city of Dover, especially the city council persons who participated in the last exterior infrastructure, identifying infrastructure from exterior, we're going to have an update on that for you within the next 60 days. I've talked with the city manager. I have not nailed a concrete date yet, but we do look forward to letting you know when we're going to implement those ideas and those defective conditions within your community very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lewis.
Recently, I wrote a letter to the editor in the newspaper with regard to city evaluations. I would like to make the citizens aware that the council is in the process of evaluating those individuals that report directly to City Council. During this process, I have learned many things, one in which I believe the evaluation process is flawed. I don't believe the process is a fair process, particularly for the employees that we evaluate. Therefore, I'm making a recommendation to the full City Council that the process be changed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Other council members' announcements? We'll now go back to item number 9 on the council agenda, which is the appointment of the interim fire marshal, Mrs. Townsend. Before we get into this issue, if it appears or if the conversation takes us into an area which we need to go into executive session, we'll need to have a motion to do that. We will go into executive session in the caucus room and then return back out here for any public actions or any action at all, because we'll need to return this. So, Councilman Anderson, then Councilman.
Well, there are certain questions that I know that I have in particular, and I just want to get it over with and move that we enter into executive session.
Second.
All right, moved by Councilman Anderson, seconded by Councilman Sudler to enter into executive session under, I'm assuming under 29 Delaware C 10,004 B9, personnel matters in which the names, competency, and abilities of individual employees are discussed.
That is correct.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are in executive session. We will return to this after our executive session.
Thank you.
To start.
Things in.
see you. Electronic.